So if they're introducing themselves to new clients with their pronouns, if they're doing names and pronouns anytime they start a meeting or have a new group of people together, that's super powerful.
Welcome to the Speaking for Profit podcast. I'm Evolve Benton, your amazing host and the Speaking for Profit coach. And I want to welcome you all to one of my favorite months of the year, which is Pride Month. What I want to say is it's my favorite month because it's the opportunity not only for us to acknowledge the amazing LGBT community, but it's an opportunity for us to get paid. So normally this is a space where we're acknowledged for our greatness by securing the bag, whether that's speaking or performing or sharing our stories. So if you're watching this podcast and you know an amazing LGBTQIA person out in the world who's doing some good work, go on and send them a Cash App. This is a reminder to support our folks, to pay our folks for their amazing knowledge. And I'm really excited about today's conversation because I know that when we're thinking about the legislation that's being put out and some of the things that's happening even within the diversity, equity, and inclusion sector, there's a lot of scarcity feelings right now and feelings that we can't still do the work. And for folks who don't know, I was and currently am a DEI practitioner, and I started doing this work in 2012, right? So I've been able to see the ups and downs of it. And our guest for today, Star, is an amazing, amazing speaker, animation artist, and has done so much work in the community as well. So I know that this conversation is going to be a powerful, not to mention, they are a Speaking for Profit member, which is always a great space to hold space with what we call family. So if you are watching now, just go on and subscribe, and get into this amazing conversation. I'm going to bring Star to the stage. Welcome to the space, Star.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. Number one, what is the color of the hair right now? Because it is giving me life. So I know it's probably giving our audience
right
life.
Now, before I have my next speaking engagement, I'm getting it purple again with different shades of purple. So yeah.
Okay, definitely.
This is the everyday color.
Okay. This is brilliant. So Star, I know so much about you, but I would love for you to share a little bit with our audience about who you are and how you serve your audience currently right now as a speaker.
Yeah, so I taught for 15 years before becoming an instructional designer and a diversity trainer. I love to teach, and training has just let me teach adults. I'm passionate about anything to do with neurodiversity and with the LGBTQ community, and I specialize in training mental health professionals and healthcare professionals.
Oh, yes. And so with education, I work with so many folks who have done work in more higher education, but for you, it was K through 12, correct?
I taught preschool and special ed, although I've worked with higher education as a trainer.
Okay, definitely. So do you feel like being a teacher gave you the skills that you needed to easily become like a trainer and a facilitator with adults, or is there a lot difference that goes into those conversations?
There's a lot of similarity. We all want to know what's in it for us. We all want something to be different than we expect. We want variety. We want novelty. So I really haven't found it to be that different. Well, fewer puppets. But other than that, yeah, people want to know what's in it for them. And with adults, I would say the difference is that they want actionable steps. They're really looking for something practical. Whereas for the children, we've kind of already decided what the outcome is for them. For the adults, you're really selling the outcome.
Okay, definitely. That's such a good significance for folks to know, right? Because I think that my experience is that most of the time communication is strong when we know our audience. And I think, Star, what's really great about your work, right? I mentioned you do all this amazing work with instructional design and animation, and you speak, is you know who your audiences are and how you can impact them. And I think so much of that probably comes from you being an amazing teacher for 15 years. So what brings you joy most of the time in your business, and what brings you joy in your personal life?
In my business, it's helping someone who is a little bit not open to what I have to say. I've had people who are assigned to work with me who started out having a lot of barriers up, and I find so much joy in being able to hold space with where they are and empathize with, a lot of people say that. I've heard that a lot. And then gently show a different perspective, because that's where change happens. In my personal life, I have an amazing son who's almost 14, so he brings me a lot of joy.
Definitely. So a parent of a teenager.
Yes.
Goodness.
I always say the teachers don't get paid enough. He tells me stories from school, and I'm like, oh, this is why I taught the little ones.
That's so funny. That's so exciting. So you're able to have these transformative conversations, right? With adults that bring you joy about, like, shifting their perspective on some ideas that they might be a little bit old to. And then also you have these, I'm assuming, powerful conversations with your son. When it comes to being a part of the LGBT community and DEI, is it, did you choose to speak about that topic because of your identity? Did the topic come to you because you're like, you know what, things need to change? How did you find your way in work that kind of like intersects with who you are?
I decided to go into diversity training based on my personal experience. I left a job after the boss became homophobic and transphobic. And what surprised me was this was a national company, and at a national level, they had a Pride ERG. Before I took a job there, I read their diversity statement, and it mentions sexual orientation and gender identity. And I realized that these very clearly stated values were not being communicated at the local level for, the small branches throughout the U.S., at least not at the one I was at. And so I just was trying to think about how we could change that. How can a company who puts the pride flag up every June communicate to its employees what is and isn't acceptable, and how to best be respectful of their coworkers?
That's real. Sometimes it takes that personal thing, right, to really activate us to understand that these DEI statements, even sometimes when CEOs will come to orientations to have these kind of conversations, and then when people get into the actual workplace, it's a really different experience. So when you go into a training environment and you're looking to support an organization to be more LGBT inclusive, what are some of the first strategies that you do to kind of audit the experience and see how you can help them or how you can support them?
I look at things like pronoun usage. That's a really easy and really powerful way to communicate support for people of all gender identities. When people look at me, they guess she, her pronouns. And by making it normal to share pronouns, at meetings, in your email signature, on Zoom, it makes it so that we're not assuming. And it makes it easier for people like me who don't have the pronouns that people would guess. So that's the number one thing that I recommend to them. I also talk to them a lot about policies around bathrooms for their transgender employees, and about what they have in place for transitioning employees. Does their healthcare program pay for gender affirming care? How hard is it for a person who's transitioning to change their name everywhere on their ID card and in the system? So those are the big things that I start with. I feel like that's the basis.
Yeah. And you know what, Star? I feel like if people could get those things right, we would all, at least me personally, I would feel so much safer at the workplace. I used to work at a university, and the headache it was to know that our preferred name policy was just a policy, and in action, it was a headache. So I would almost break out into hives anytime I would meet a non-binary trans student, because I would know that they're going to experience so much harm trying to get this name change. And we had institutional issue, but also a technology issue, right? All of the parts didn't talk to one another. So, right, admissions had a different computer system than maybe the counseling center and different than the gym. Everyone had all these different systems. Some of them had preferred name, most of them didn't, right? So it was really, really challenging. So I'm really appreciative of the work that you're doing. When it comes to pronouns in particular, I assume that most of my audience who watches this knows what these things mean, but it's been so interesting being a business coach who is trying to create an inclusive environment for my clients. I'll sometimes get people who join and who have left speaking for profit because we use pronouns, which is really interesting to me. Like they'll get on the call and people will be, introducing themselves. You know how we do, check in, name, pronoun, and really simple. And they're like, I don't know what I'm supposed to say to that. And then they just log off or never show back up. It's been really wild to me. So I don't want to assume anymore. And I would love for you as the thought expert to share with us what pronouns are. And you mentioned it's so easeful for us to use them. What are ways that particularly business owners can adapt that in an easy way?
Say the first question again.
So what are pronouns, right? Like what are pronouns essentially? And then how do we use them to be inclusive? And what is like a simple practice that maybe like a listening business owner can apply to make it easier for folks?
Absolutely. So a pronoun is just a part of speech. It's a word we use in place of a noun. Personal pronouns are words we use in place of someone's name. If I'm talking about evolve, I'm not going to say evolve 80 times. I'm going to say they have an amazing business. King is really easy to work with. And so really that's all it is knowing how to refer to someone when you're not saying their name. I would say for business owners, start any kind of introduction with pronouns. The managers and owners especially are in a position of power and set a standard. So if they're introducing themselves to new clients with their pronouns, if they're doing names and pronouns anytime they start a meeting or have a new group of people together, that's super powerful. And again, having it in places like your Zoom name, your email signature really says a lot to me, even more than having the pride flag. Because that says to me, not only do you strive to be an ally, but you get it on a deeper level.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're putting yourself out there, right, by using them and by acknowledging it, which I think is super powerful. So thank you so much, Star. Y'all, Star usually charges the bag for this. So I hope that y'all have gotten y'all's notebooks out. I know y'all didn't think y'all were going to get a DEI training today, but we want to make sure that everyone is learned up. And what's so important about this work, Star, and for folks who are watching or listening, the more of us that know about it, accept it, and actually utilize this becomes powerful for so many work environments. The reason I wanted you to share, Star, is because many of the people that follow me aren't necessarily connected to institutions, but they're also like trying to start their own businesses. Right. And I want us to all know as like new CEOs or even as small business owners, these are things that we can do to not only protect the LGBT community, but create a space where folks feel more included in general and where we do less harm. Because when you assume pronouns or you assume who a person is, right, then you have to back up and apologize. And half of y'all can't even do that. So at least you can just try to get it right the first time.
I tell people we all mess up. We are swimming in this sea of cis heteronormativity. We're going to mess up. We're from a young age, we're kind of putting everything into a he or a she category. So I say, it's fine to mess up. Just don't make a big deal out of it. Correct yourself, move on. So if you say, oh yeah, I know Star, they are with Stellar Diversity Training. That's literally it. You don't need to apologize. You don't need to make a big deal out of it. We all do it. Move forward.
Attention public speakers, coaches, and consultants. Ever dreamt of booking 5-figure speaking and consulting contracts? In just 5 days, I'm teaching my tried and tested system to elevate your speaking and consulting business. Forget the cold emails, bypass the salesy pitches. This challenge is about building genuine high-value connections. And here's a promise I have for you. With a commitment of just 1 to 2 hours a day for 5 days, you're going to witness transformative results. On day 1, you'll learn how to craft a business strategy without cold emails or paying to speak. Day 2 is all about you redefining your profile to attract decision makers ready to invest in your expertise. By day 3, you'll have your very own 5-figure sales system to turn contacts into clients. By day 4, we will have you automating your funnel with proven templates and scripts. And day 5, I'm going to teach you how to master the art of discovery calls with a step-by-step checklist and exclusive 5-figure sales secrets. Whether you're just stepping onto the speaking scene or you're a seasoned pro, this challenge is tailor-made for you. I'm going to teach you the exact strategies that have helped me help my clients make over $2 million in the last 2 years. The journey to a thriving 5-figure speaking consulting business begins with this challenge. So are you ready to redefine your limits, accelerate your growth, and bask in the limelight of your success? I want you to join the 5 Days to 5-Figure Speaking Challenge now. Let's rewrite your success story together. Simply head over to speakingforprofit.com. You're going to click that button that says 5 Days to 5-Figure Speaking Gigs so you can get started with the challenge. Can't wait to see you there. All right, now back to the show. Yeah, exactly. Because sometimes, and I know some people get this question of why wouldn't I apologize? Don't people want an apology? But people don't want it to be the priority of the conversation.
Exactly.
That's the thing, y'all. And when you do this big old thing and you apologize and you make it more about you, the conversation becomes about that and not whatever you were talking about at your work.
Exactly. And it makes it awkward for us because then I feel like I need to tell you, oh no, it's okay, when it's not. It's okay to make mistakes. But yeah, I mean, I can see maybe privately afterwards apologizing to someone, but yeah, in the middle of a conversation, just fix it. Keep going.
Keep going. Definitely. So Star, as we're talking more about pronouns and we're, in Pride Month, there's been so many legislations, policies put out, by the government to create unsafe space for trans folks, to take away rights, right? To take away access to healthcare. And I was at the Black Trans Advocacy Conference a few months ago, and what they said to me was so powerful at this larger gala. They said to us, they've put out probably over 600 legislative laws or more, but only a small percentage have actually passed, right? So the conversation was, we're winning, but we're not winning in mindset because there's still so much like fear and anxiety around the topic, and people are losing their jobs, especially DEI practitioners. So I don't want to act like that's not what exists, but I do want to share with the community, right, that less things are passing than are being put up. But when you see things being put up, it does show the cultural feeling of our government and what they think is really appropriate. So for maybe a group of folks who want to continue to do this work, but have like that fear around it, do you have any tools, strategies, or thoughts around that you could share with them as a DEI practitioner? Like, how do they continue to show up to the work with some of the fear? It's not even fear, real fear, but fear narratives being put out to our community. I
think you have to find your people. I think you have to tread slowly. And we all have to respect that it's not going to be safe for everyone to be out in every situation. The EEOC, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, just ruled that outing someone in the workplace without their permission is considered creating a hostile work environment. So I would say be really clear with who you're comfortable with sharing. It doesn't mean that we're any less proud of who we are. If there's some spaces where we don't want to share that part of our identity because we could literally be attacked for it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, I think safety is so important. And, we've had this conversation even on some of our business development calls with the group, like, charge more. I'm telling all of my like non-binary trans friends, charge more when you got to go to these places, because, and it's not because the whole community shouldn't feel on fire. I just feel sometimes when you're gender diverse and you're out in the world, you're seen more, right? People can see you. So that visibility, you don't know where you're traveling. You might be traveling to a very, very inclusive environment, but to get there and the plane and the airports and the, in between could be really unsafe. So the extra money that we're charging y'all is not just because we're queer and fabulous, which, that should be the thing that we do, but also because we might need extra security in order to get to those spaces and feel as safe as possible. So thank you so much, Sharon. Thanks for still doing the work, even though all of this is going on, right? So let's talk a little bit about you and working with clients. I always ask practitioners this question because I think it's important, but I want to hear from you because I'm sure you're going to have an amazing perspective. Who do you love to work with? And who would you kind of be like, you know what? It's not my favorite group to work with.
I love to work with mental health professionals. I hear from so many members of the trans community that mental health professionals who mean well are committing a ton of microaggressions. And because of the climate we live in that you described, because it's considered logical and morally okay to try to pass bills that criminalize basic parts of our existence, it's a time we especially need therapists. And we need therapists who can serve us in a way that's not accidentally committing microaggressions. So therapists are my favorite people to work with. I would say the construction industry is probably my least favorite, although I have a dear friend who owns a construction company that is very openly queer. I made a video for them on pronouns and even included animated versions of their boss and put their voices in. And so they were a good exception to the rule. But I would say in general, the construction industry tends to be very conservative. Just a lot of cisgender heterosexual people who maybe haven't been exposed to people like me and so only know what they've been told by others, which may or may not be an accurate representation of our community.
I love that. I love that you love working with mental health professionals because,
Yes.
that's close to my home and some of the folks I like working with as well. How did you get into animation? I don't think I've ever heard this story from you. When did you start becoming an artist in that way?
When I got into instructional design, I found that it's really hard to find diverse representation in stock photos. There are websites out there that specialize in those photos, but a lot of times they're not high enough quality that I can use them in my work. So with animated videos, I can create a slew of people with different hair textures and skin colors and wearing different religious headdresses. So I got into it because it lets me create diverse characters that reflect what our world looks like. And then I can use them to, I can create animated videos about anything that I need to train. I also just think it's fun, right? People don't need to have me talk at them for 50 minutes. I try to do a lot of interactive things, but some things we do just need to communicate information. And animation is a fun way to do that.
Definitely. I love that. I love that. And instructional design, I know that some folks have heard this language before. Some folks are probably like, what does STAR do? So can you tell us a little bit about your work there? And, what are some of the outcomes that come from having an instructional designer support you with your intellectual property?
Well, instructional design just means I make training. I can make e-learning. I can make training that I deliver to you in person or that someone else delivers. So it's basically just using your knowledge of adult learning theory to communicate really anything. I mean, I've helped make e-learning for Kellogg's to sell cereal, right? You can do it for anything. There's a lot of it involved in workplace training. So yeah, what was your second question?
When it comes to instructional design, what are some of the outcomes that come from? And I guess you kind of shared that, right? Because it could be an in-person, you said, event. It could be literally the training that you're creating for yourself or that you're creating for others.
I think it's a really powerful way to communicate with your employees and to do it consistently. Let's say you have a new sales strategy or you have new software that everyone needs to learn how to use. I think you want someone with a background in adult learning theory to figure out, how can I keep their attention? How do I present this in a way that they're going to remember? And not just share the information, but really get to know your company and what your employees are struggling with, let's say with a given task. So to really personalize it for your needs.
I love that, Star. So I'm taking a course right now with Google, and it's got me like, wow, there's so many cool things you could do. So they have a video where a person's speaking. It's not like they're like in a little box. They're literally speaking to you, and then the boxes come up here and there. And I really like that to, emphasize certain things. After that, you have reading about the same subject. Then there's also an animated portion of it or infographic. So they're kind of teaching us in 3 different ways to double down on it. But, as a course creator, I'm like, I can't wait to get with a Star and sit down and make my coursework so much better and more accessible. And they also have the transcripts running. It's just a well done course. And I think they've thought about everything. And I'm assuming it's because they had amazing instructional designers that supported them with that.
Right. And the right instructional designers are going to focus on accessibility from day one. I'm glad that you mentioned that. There are extra costs to adding features that make something more accessible. That's one thing I tell people to look for in an instructional designer is even if you don't legally have to meet the ADA requirements, the Americans with Disabilities Act, or the web requirements for accessibility, it's the right thing to do. And you want everyone to be able to access this training that you're putting so much time and effort into.
Definitely. Yeah. I think it's so important and something that I feel like I could learn and grow from that I really want to work on. And I really appreciate the work you're doing to not only highlight it, but to put it out there. I've seen recently, did a post on LinkedIn kind of talk about like, you wish every course had transcripts and how it could be so supportive, to help folks.
Right. Transcripts are obviously very important for people who aren't able to hear the video. But a lot of us, just the way we process, it's a lot easier to read than to listen. And so it can be really helpful for just a wide variety of people, but not even just people with hearing impairments or auditory processing disorders. So yeah, there are a lot of things like that you can do that are very simple and straightforward but powerful.
Definitely. Well, Star, tell us a little bit about your company, right? Number one, what's the vision for it? Maybe just, in the next 3 years, like where do you want your company to go?
I would like to increase the number of trainings that I'm doing. My vision is to be the go-to person for mental health professionals. I want to be able to give them continuing education units for their trainings. They can get them now when I speak at a conference, but I'd like to be able to do it directly. And I would like to, I would just like to help everyone who wants to be an ally put that into action, because I see a lot of people with really good intentions, especially in the mental health field, who are just kind of nervous, like, I've never worked with a trans client, I'm going to say the wrong thing, or they don't realize that they're already saying the wrong thing a lot. So that's my vision, is just to empower as many mental health professionals as possible to serve our community and to feel more comfortable doing so.
Yes. And I love it, Star. Like, I remember when I first met you during the 5-day challenge and you had big dreams then and they vibrate from you now. And we haven't talked about this a lot, but I really appreciate you being such a good group member when it comes to speaking for profit. Like you show up in space, you give a lot of reciprocity, right? You ask questions, but you also will give people support. And it's just been really cool to see you grow.
Thank you. I love the community. I think that's just pivotal. I learn so much from other people and they help hold me accountable. And it's just more fun to have that support. It can be a long journey and making big changes and getting into new habits within your business. And so having other people who have similar goals and interests is just really powerful and enjoyable.
Yeah. I always say like, being a solo entrepreneur means that you need community.
Yes.
Right? Because if not, you'll kind of just be sitting there and sitting in your head. So we talked about what the larger vision is. We talked a little bit about like who you like working with. And what I want to hear from you is what are ways that folks can support your business right now, right? Because like you heard me say in the introduction, they need to be paying our folks. It is our month, but not just this month moving forward. But yeah, what are ways that folks can support you? And is it bringing you in? Is it hire you as a designer, like where are the books open and how can they support your work?
I still have openings for webinars and in-person trainings for Pride Month. I can also work as an instructional designer to create a training that you own and can use every year. For example, like I said, for the construction company, I made something that's very specific. The examples about pronouns are about handing someone the hammer or, things like that. So yes, both training directly from me, creating training from you. For people who are on LinkedIn, you can follow Stellar Diversity Training. I share a lot of content there specifically about educating about the trans community. And I also have a YouTube channel where there are some educational videos. So you can, if you want to learn how to use these/their pronouns or learn more about unconscious bias, people can support just by watching those and sharing them.
I love it. I love it. And what we'll do, Star, is we'll put all of those links in the show notes so that folks can check them out. So please send them to me and I'll be sure to put them there. Definitely. Anything else you want to share with people as we wrap up our conversation? Anything else that they should know about you or any messages around allyship?
I would say a big part of allyship is using gender neutral language. Many of my loved ones are trans, and a lot of us struggle with dysphoria, which is just some people feel like their bodies don't represent their gender, right? And that can be really stressful and painful. And a lot of people, because we guess gender, because we try to be polite, like ma'am and sir and Ms., are guessing wrong. So I would say for allies, just try to not to use gendered terms if you don't know someone's gender. A lot of people will hear a deep voice on a phone and immediately, oh, yes, sir, and this. And if that person's a trans woman, it's really hard, especially when it happens every single day, everywhere you go. So that's my message for allies is work on the gender neutral language. And and that's one of the things that I cover in my trainings is it's just about swapping out a few words, and there's some words we avoid until we know someone's gender.
Exactly, y'all. Like, get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yes.
That's one thing I always share when I'm training folks, Star, and I know you probably do as well, because there's a group of folks who walk around being uncomfortable a large percentage of their life. So if you can do it for a small percentage of your time, then it's going to create so much space for everyone to feel included, everyone to feel loved, and everyone to feel valued.
Absolutely. And that's what we want, right? That's what it's all about.
Yeah. So if I heard y'all, if y'all got anything from this episode, I hope it is that like being a performative ally is not what we need. We need you to be a little bit more, go a little bit deeper. And the great thing about it, y'all, is even though you might be hearing all these things in the news about DEI dying, we've got amazing practitioners like Star who are ready to serve and to do the work, and ready to support your organization with creating more culture for everyone. Sometimes there's this belief that if you create more space for LGBT folks, then Black folks don't have space. If you create more space for Black folks, then LGBT. It's not that. It's not an oppression Olympics. It's actually going to be more than enough for all of us. And when we all feel included, there's some amazing things that we can create. So, Star, thank you so much for, taking the time to be here and to share yourself and for all the powerful work that you do. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. And thank you for letting me be a part of Speaking for Profit. I've had opportunities that I wouldn't have had otherwise, and I feel so much more confident about my business and my goals for sharing my message with more people.
Oh, that's so good to hear, Star. Like having you in the community is literally, this is the thing. And I want to share this with you because it means the world to me, what I want to share with the community. Speaking for Profit was made for our folks. It was made for LGBT folks. Now, everyone else is invited, but particularly when it comes to business development programs, I can name them on two fingers, probably, who actually include people's pronouns in their onboarding form, who make it like really apparent that we want to be as inclusive as possible to not just your gender identity, but your intersectional identities, your holistic self. So when people join, it means the world to me because what I hate hearing is other people joining other programs, spending thousands of dollars and being harmed. For folks who need a home, we got you. And if we're not the ones, at least come to me and I will tell you who are the folks who are, or at least how to have conversations or to your coaches about how to include pronouns in it. And if you need someone to come and do a training, y'all, like a lot of y'all are thinking about like the Facebooks and the Googles and everybody else. But if you're in a coaching program right now and you're not being treated well, Star is someone else who can come in and support with that training and development as well. So I don't want you all to think that it has to be, you know, some big business 9 to 5. These things can save our community just by having them in these very small coaching communities and creating space for that as well.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Cool. I know I talked a lot during this interview, but I got really excited.
No, I get excited too. And that's what I love about this sort of thing. I love that you share your passion in speaking for profit. It's very clearly a work from your heart, and that shows. And that lights me up too.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Star. All right, y'all. Well, make sure y'all hit up Star's YouTube channel, connect with them on LinkedIn. And until next time, peace.